Thanks for stopping by the MinnesotaBlack RobeRegiment channel. Once again, definitely appreciate subscriptions, appreciate feedback, comments, criticisms, critiques. You can throw money at me if you want. I'm okay with that too. So this video is another installment of Casual Cognitive Dissonance. This one's probably a little bit more pointed than some of the others. I have wanted to kind of make this series a little bit more lighthearted, but I've been having trouble being lighthearted with some of the subject matter. And so in this installment, I'm going to be interacting briefly for Todd, briefly with some comments that were made on the interview video that I shared with the Interchange bistro in Albert Lea. Individual came in to the conversation, had some pretty harsh things to say, and I pointed out some stuff, and we'll get there. So here we are. We're going to take a look at these comments. So here's the video that I shared with the interview with Lisa Hansen from the Interchange. She says here, the TC Pearson, humbled by your comments. Thank you for giving us the time to share our message. And this individual named Rico Anderson chimed in, and he just kind of shared pictures, screenshots, or screen grabs, if you will. And so this one is from an individual named Nina and the Brain. She's from Santa Barbara, California. And her comment, or screenshot that Rico shared was, the argument at play here is that it is not really just a personal choice when that choice can hurt others by lowering herd immunity and or contribute to the rise of a preventable disease that kills people. No one can force you to vaccinate or mask, but don't use this argument as it is a cynical attempt for legitimacy. In America, you have the freedom insofar as your actions don't inhibit others' rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The public health authority has a duty to do the most good, and requiring immunizations for school, for example, is protective of immunity in the population. For the government to rescind such a mandate is knowingly putting lives and health at risk, equals your free choice is now impairing others' safety, equals no longer just about your right. Now, the casual cognitive dissonance that takes place here is that Rico just assumes that this is a cut and dried argument, and by posting this here, he's defeated the entire conversation that I had with Lisa in nothing but a screen grab from Nina and the Brain. The problem here is there is a disconnect in what they're saying, and it starts in the first paragraph. The argument at play here is that it is not really just a personal choice when that choice can hurt others by lowering herd immunity and or contribute to the rise of a preventable disease that kills people. Stop. Just stop, okay? First of all, let's just grant that COVID is killing more people than any other virus that has been around for quite some time. It's not, but let's just grant that it is. What have we also seen? We've seen a massive decrease in the common cold and the flu. Now, their argument is the reason why we've seen this massive decrease in the common cold and the flu is because everyone's being told to social distance, to stay home, to work from home, and to wear masks when they're in public. But yet we're also being told here in Minnesota that the disease that we're trying to fight currently is growing, it's spreading, and has been spreading. Now, the day that I'm shooting this video is I'm about 12 hours removed from the governor announcing that he was going to be rolling back restaurant restrictions, but we know how he operates, and there's some other things that are coming into play there, and we'll talk about that in another video. So what she says here is, no one can force you to vaccinate or mask, but don't use this argument. It is a cynical attempt for legitimacy. That because it's bold in there, the person who highlighted that, who bold-faced that, clearly thinks that this is the end-all and be-all of the argument, because they then link it to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here. And this, there's a disconnect. What is it? Well, if you can't force me to vaccinate or wear a mask, and you're acknowledging that, then how is it a cynical attempt for legitimacy? It's not a cynical attempt for legitimacy. It is an actual legitimate argument. You don't have the authority or the power as a governor or as a mayor or as a city board, city council or county board or anything else to force somebody to wear a mask or to vaccinate. You don't have that power. It's not an illegitimate argument. It's very legitimate. And so this is the way their brains work. They just assert something, and because they assert it, therefore it must be true. And it's not. So let's see what else Rico thought to share. Here, what's this one? Oh, here we go. All constitutional rights are subject to the government's authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. This authority is called the police power. I find this incredibly ironic coming from a leftist. The Supreme Court has long held that protecting public health is sufficient reason to institute measures that might otherwise violate the First Amendment. Well, the Supreme Court just ruled against that when it came to shutting down churches. So let's keep that in mind. Rico has forgotten that, haven't you, Rico? The Supreme Court, you can't quote one Supreme Court decision and not look at all the others when it comes to the First Amendment. Okay, casual cognitive dissonance much. The Supreme Court has long held that protecting public health is sufficient reason to institute measures that might otherwise violate the First Amendment or other provisions in the Bill of Rights. In 1944, now let's look at the case that he's going to use here, okay? In the case of Prince v. Massachusetts, for example, the Supreme Court upheld a law that prohibited parents from using their children to distribute religious pamphlets on public streets. Now, I don't even need to get into the background of this. Up here, we're talking all constitutional rights are subject to the government's authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Okay, that's your argument. That's the argument you're building. The Supreme Court has long held that protecting public health is sufficient reason to institute measures that might otherwise violate the First Amendment or other provisions in the Bill of Rights. We're arguing health here. So what does he shift to? What's Rico's casual cognitive dissonance? A screen grab from somebody else who has now shifted the goalpost and has now made it parents can't use their children to distribute religious pamphlets on public streets. Okay, why not? Why can't a parent do that? Is it because of health? No. If the parent is forcing that child to do something that the child does not want to do, that's infringing on that child. We're going to take a look at this Prince v. Massachusetts, okay? So this is Wiki, and obviously things aren't always 100% perfect here. So, but this is a Wiki page, and so the juxtaposition here is that the Supreme Court, remember what did they say? Supreme Court can do what they want. Why? Well, to protect the health. Okay, this is not a health decision. A woman who had guardianship of a child that was not her own. So here, her name was Sarah Prince, who was a Jehovah's Witness, was a guardian of a 9-year-old girl named Betty Ann Simons, whom she had brought into a downtown area to preach on the streets. The preaching involved distributing literature in exchange for voluntary contributions. The child labor laws that she was charged with violating stipulated that no boys under 12 and no girls under 18 were permitted to sell literature or other goods on public thoroughfares. There were 3 complaints filed against Prince: refusal to disclose her child's identity and age to a public officer, furnishing the girl with magazines knowing she was to sell them unlawfully, that is, on the street, and as child's custodian, permitting her to work contrary to the law. Now, this has nothing to do with this. Nothing. Nothing at all. That's all you have to do to defeat this. Okay, period. You can't use this case to cite public health. Now, we might be able to argue some others, but the Supreme Court, in the case of a response to the particular virus that we're dealing with right now, has said that the government cannot infringe upon First Amendment liberties for a virus, even in a public health time. Now, if a church chooses to abide by what the governor says, that's fine. Or if another organization chooses to abide by what the governor says, that's fine. But they cannot be forced to do so by the government. And the Supreme Court's made that ruling. Now, as I like to do, and I'm not going to go through all of these, I asked Rico, like I do, Rico, you seem to be quite bold behind a keyboard. Care to meet for an in-person moderated debate? I would gladly do so. And since you are terrified of a virus with a survival rate of 99+%, I will wear a facial covering for the event. Topic: can a health scare suspend the constitutional liberties of the citizenry of the United States? Pro: Rico Anderson. Con: TC Pearson. Put your money where your fingers are and agree to the debate. And here's his response. Sorry, I don't argue with anyone who lacks common sense or empathy or has a very low IQ. They're all very unattractive character flaws. Not sure which you fit into, but no thanks. And I point out his use of the logical fallacy of the argumentum ad hominem. And I ask him, where's your empathy for small businesses? See, this is how this works. You have to point out their casual cognitive dissonance when you run into it. And here's this appeal to experience logical. I am a self-employed small business owner who has been 100% out of work since March 13th with no income, but I follow the rules to keep everyone safe, and I don't bitch and moan about it. That's on you, Rico. That's your decision if you choose to do that. But you don't get to use your position to enforce that on someone else. And he goes on, and I'll be one of the last few to go back to work when it's clear. Wow. So magnanimous of you, Rico. That's wonderful. I'm glad that works for you. Not everybody has that option, okay? So he goes on to say some more things. So what I did, quite frankly, the day that I'm interacting with him is the same day that Lisa Monet Zarza's business, the Alibi in Lakeville, was vandalized, and Lisa was subsequently assaulted as part of all of the cleanup efforts and whatnot. So I asked Rico, and here again, he's been very bold in calling people names and claiming this and claiming that. Well, he goes right here. More selfish fools. Notice in the videos and interviews that no one, of course no one's in the interview is wearing a facial covering. We're doing it via Zoom, you moron. No one, I repeat, no one is wearing a mask or social distancing. There again, we don't have to. They can't claim to be following safety protocols, can they? The next step after big fines and a 5-year license suspension needs to be the real strict contract tracing, and then they need to face heavier charges of reckless endangerment and connected to community spread and any deaths from their incompetence. Authorities need to tie some cases and deaths to this place. Same goes for Alibi Drinkery in Lakeville. Now listen, what he's doing here. He's saying they need to tie some to this place. He didn't say they need to be able to trace it. He wants them to tie it. He wants them to find a link. It's impossible to do. It would be impossible to do that. You can't do that. There's no way you could trace a case back. You just can't. We can't trace the virus back really to its original. We don't know if it came from a bat. We don't know if it came from the wet markets. We don't know if it was fabricated in a lab in China. We don't know where it came from. We just know it's a naturally existing virus, period. Because it's of a particular family that happens to also cause the common cold. So remember what I said, same day that Lisa Monet Zarza's business was vandalized and that she was assaulted. So I asked him, hey, Rico, are you okay with this kind of direct action taken by Antifa against businesses that are still open? And I show the pictures. Show him each one of the pictures. And then I show him this picture. And I say, lay it out pretty clearly here. Rico Anderson, the Marxist authoritarian propaganda of the left, people such as yourself, led to this happening to a citizen. Is this okay in your book? They have labeled Lisa Monet and all of her supporters Nazis and KKK and white supremacists. I mean, when you sit back behind your keyboard and use the rhetoric of the left, you directly contribute to emboldening the actions of terrorist groups like Antifa and Black Bloc. You are part of the problem. So will you decry the actions taken against Lisa Monet early Sunday morning? Will you speak out against these terrorist radicals of the leftist militias? But does this picture fit the narrative being advanced by Antifa and BLM and others like yourself? Do these folks look like they are white supremacists? The only thing he did was laugh at the picture. He has not once in any of these expressed any empathy for Lisa Monet Zarza and what she suffered at the hands of leftist Marxists. Casual cognitive dissonance. This is real harm. Lisa was truly harmed. Her business was truly harmed. The next step for them often is firebombing. They've done it. They burned down a good portion of neighborhoods in Minneapolis over the death of George Floyd, who was, by the way, a criminal, who was resisting and who had also taken on a large amount of drugs and died of an overdose. He didn't die at the hands of law enforcement. He died while in law enforcement custody, but law enforcement didn't kill him. That's the ruling of the coroner. He was going to die. It looked an awful lot like excited delirium. And Antifa and Black Bloc and Black Lives Matter and the New Black Panthers and the New Black Liberation Army burned down entire neighborhoods, businesses, destroyed Black-owned businesses, and nobody said a word. And Rico Anderson, didn't say a word here either to what happened to Lisa. He's okay with it because she's not towing the line. That, my friends, is what's wrong with our country. The casual cognitive dissonance of the left is disgusting. People like Rico Anderson are specifically related to or tied to the downfall of this country. They don't see it that way. I understand that. They believe that what they're doing is right. But what they don't understand is that sooner or later they're going to lose too. They're going to lose the fight because they're going to run out of patriots and constitutionalists to defend them. And they're going to end up coming for them when they decide I've had enough and I'm not going to take it anymore. As always, thanks for watching, and Sic Semper Tyrannis.